What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Triple H podcast, Happy Hour Hoops, your one stop shop for everything NBA. Steve, Jake, and myself, Dunny, here to talk hoops as always. Guys, the NBA is crazy right now. It's points, 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 and some more points. Got a lot to talk about today. Going to be talking about MJ, Steph Curry discussion. Steve Kerr had some comments on that. I'm going to declare this as the best NBA product as we've ever seen in a little bit.
Whew.
Go over our weekly power rankings and then this or that at the end. How's that
This or
sound?
that.
I think I don't want to spoil anything, but I think we're all on the same side for this or that. That's all I'm gonna say. We'll talk about that at the end, but I think we're all on the same side.
We better be.
You never know.
Yeah. But let's start with a little news and notes first, guys. I tried to put in some unique pieces in here this week, some good stuff. Not too much bad news this week, which is a positive. I feel like the last couple of weeks we've had a lot of injuries, but some guys returning, some more guys returning soon. My favorite piece of news is that Mac McClung, a guy who I think has gotten an unfair shot since he's had his chances in the NBA, is going to be a part of All-Star Weekend as a G Leaguer because he got invited to the dunk contest. And I didn't even know you could do that, but apparently you can. And Mac McClung at All-Star Weekend in the dunk contest, pretty insane.
Did you almost say Macklemore?
I almost did just say Macklemore.
I wouldn't blame you. He's got Macklemore vibes. He's Mac McClung. It's a really hard, it's a simulation name where you're like, you couldn't try harder. Come on.
Yeah.
Couldn't give us a better one. It's awesome. I think it's huge because it's cool giving a G League guy the spotlight too, but we've all known Mac McClung since high school, Instagram, going viral, House of Highlights, stuff like that. And so to put a guy like that, that's the base you're trying to get to watch the dunk contest and all these other contests that are going to be going on All-Star Saturday every year. And he's going to bring a lot of different eyeballs. I think that maybe wouldn't before, but it's a name that you want to get, names that get people excited about the dunk contest. There's been too many years where they've just brought a bunch of random guys that can jump, and it's we don't they can jump high, but are they really that good? And this is going to bring some interest. So I'm all for it, man. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, the past couple of years, the dunk contest, I don't want to say it's been unwatchable, but it hasn't been the same as it was kind of during its peak. And I think this will bring it back. Because not only is he a very good dunker, but Matt McClung is someone who's going to want to put on a show. He's someone who's going to want to make it exciting. And when you have a guy coming from the G League, you got nothing to lose here, right? This is your moment in the spotlight now. He's not in the league right now. He's playing well in the G League, but he's not in the league right now. And this is a chance for him not just to prove himself as a basketball player, but just to put on the show and get his name out there again, get people talking about him. Because you were right, Jake. This is someone, that a lot of people were talking about at the start, coming up through high school and college, because he was an exciting player, an electric player, and he had all those highlight reel type plays, highlight reel type dunks. This is a way to get a little bit more of excitement and a better draw for the dunk contest, which I think has kind of been severely lacking the past few seasons.
Yeah, it seems like we haven't had a necessarily great dunk contest since Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine, and that was quite a bit ago. Yeah. I think we've had some good individual dunks since then, but not an actual good contest. And yeah, both you guys kind of said it. This is basically how Mac McClung made a name for himself in the first place. He's one of the biggest internet basketball stars in the last decade as far as high school goes. And every other highlight of his was just a fast break dunk or a between the legs during a high school game, and the crowd going absolutely wild. So he's definitely ready for the opportunity. This could be a make or break for his future in the NBA too. If he puts on enough of a show, gets enough buzz, team may just take a shot on him.
The Lakers.
Yeah. they had their shot with him.
Yeah, they
did. He's averaging 17 on 63% shooting in the G League. He had a 40-point game the other night. Shout out Mac McClung. I hope he puts on a show, man. It's going to be interesting. I think Jalen Green and I think one other person's already declared, but I know Jalen Green and Mac McClung are in it.
Jalen Green's another exciting one for if you
Yeah.
want to see some highlight reel type plays. That's another one. He's got a pretty popular name. He's been a little inconsistent this year, but he's had some really good games. And Jalen Green is someone that's going to get people in seats, going to get people to watch. I think we need more of that. If we're not going to get the superstars that we tried to get for a while with these big names to do the dunk contest, get guys that bring some excitement.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just figure out who that last person was. I guess it doesn't matter right now, but we'll see. It should be exciting. Something else exciting. Our guy, our collective Happy Hour Hoops guy, Russell Westbrook, now is the most triple doubles all time and most triple doubles off the bench all time. He just keeps adding to this Mr. Triple Double, I guess, profile that he has, and now he's kind of just sunk into Mr. Triple Double. That's just Westbrook.
Not only that, like I think I don't know how it would work in terms of being qualifying for it, but he should win Sixth Man of the Year. The way he's been playing this year is as soon as he kind of bought into that role of coming off the bench for the Lakers, he's been absolutely killing it. I think he has 20 points in his last 5 or 6 games. He had a couple triple doubles mixed in there as well. And this is a guy who, a lot of people like to hate on, and I get the shooting percentages down. I know he's only shooting like 42%, but he's making an impact for this Lakers team. And I'm a pro Russell Westbrook guy. I'll always defend him. But it looks like he's enjoying basketball again. I know I said this a while ago, but it looks like he's finally enjoying basketball again. So happy for him. It'll probably the triple doubles will probably get broken at some point by, some center right now who happens to play, in Denver. But until that happens, like Russell Westbrook's got the crown for it and he deserves it because he's been absolutely killing it this year. Not enough people are talking about it. And he's not technically averaging close to a triple double, but coming off the bench, he's averaging 16, 7, and 8. Like that's good. That's really good for a bench player. So you got to give Russell Westbrook a little bit of love, right?
Yeah, he even it's funny, as well as he plays, he still has the off court or the during game drama that people just can't help but make more of a deal out of it. Like the argument with the assistant coach the other night and LeBron James kind of getting involved, and then people, obviously non-Westbrook guys or Westbrook haters or the Westbrook believers on his end of game shot the other night as well. People weren't happy about that. But all in all, I mean, you got to take Westbrook for who he is, man. He's still playing at such a high level. He's still playing effective basketball. He's the reason when the Lakers are winning games without Anthony Davis. He's a big reason with that. Obviously, LeBron James is playing out of his mind. And we can go right into him because 48 points and 9 assists, 0 turnovers the other night for LeBron James. We were talking about the MVP discussion right before we got on tonight, and cue up the Big Bird video of Big Bird just kicking down the door. That's LeBron James entering the MVP conversation because no, I don't think he's in the top 3 right now, but what he's doing at his age and kind of keeping the Lakers alive, I think he has to be at least on the outside of the conversation, making his way in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good candidates for MVP this year. I think we were talking about it, and I'm sure we'll dive into it more later. But not only just the MVP conversation this year, Donnie, LeBron is making the Jordan is the GOAT believers. I'm not going to hear anything else. Their seat very, very hot because he's playing at an elite level at this age when this was when Jordan was regressing big time. This is when we saw a lot of the other superstars, a lot of the other quote unquote GOATs regressing a little bit. And LeBron, I wouldn't say he's getting better because he's just kind of been at this level for the last 4 or 5 years, but he's not declining. Like he's just not declining. And I was the first person. I was a LeBron hater, mainly because of the fan base, but I was always trying to find every excuse of, he's not that great. He's not that great. He's not that great. And as the years go on, it's like, okay, I have nothing else to stand on. Now I'm in the opposite side where I'm like, this guy's unbelievable. I can't believe what we're, witnessing right now at this age, especially with the team that he's been dealt with this year and everything. It's just super impressive. I mean, It's at this point now where we aren't even realizing that a guy in his high 30s is just, just casually just having, 30 point, 10 rebound, 8 assist games. And we're just like, oh, yeah, LeBron had a good game this night. Like, we're just shaking it off. Like, oh, LeBron had a good game. It's wild.
At a younger time in my life, Steve, I wouldn't pass by the comments of you being a LeBron hater and trying to discredit him for years and years and finally giving in. But I'll let that one slide to just talk about what he's doing right now. He's literally keeping them afloat when no one thought they would be afloat. When AD went out, everybody's like, all right, well, see you later. Might as well pack up Bron, like just send them all home for the, summer for the season and do whatever. And it's just been the opposite. And I can't put him in MVP talks. I really can't. Mostly just because Jokic has been so good. Like, Jokic is just going to run away with it for me at this point. It's going to be really hard for Giannis, Tatum, those guys to, like, catch up to him at this point. And I know we were talking about, like, the 3 in a row and everything. I just don't think it matters anymore. Like, it's just, like, the 3 in a row can be, like, a tiebreaker, but it can't be a decider. There's no tiebreakers. So getting to there, but what LeBron is doing, the fact that they are still within range, right now they are a game out of the play-in, and really only 2 games out of the 6th seed because of the way the West is kind of gross, man. Like, it's fun, but 6 through 11 or 6 through 13,
weird
which
product
is Golden State at 6. Yeah, it's weird. And the weirdest thing when we get to our power rankings, it's a strange setup in the West. The East looks like perfect, like the way it's set up. So just LeBron kind of has a runway because it's so tight there that, if they get hot, AD comes back, he keeps putting up these numbers. He could really build an MVP case. But they need to start, rattling off some win streaks that they haven't been able to show that they've been able to do yet. But who knows, man? Who knows what they look like when Davis comes back again, if he can actually stay on the floor, which has been, how many times have I said that in my life?
Yeah.
Like,
Too many times.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we'll see with LeBron and the Lakers, man, but he's just absolutely killing it. It is tough to, I think any other year, even the last couple of years, he probably would be in the conversation, but just the fact that all 3 of us can sit here and say it's definitely Jokic right now. And the fact that last week it was like, okay, which one is it, Tatum, Luka, or Jokic, shows how many guys we have in this and involved, and shows how difficult it's going to be. Yeah, Giannis, KD,
KD if he wasn't hurt, yeah.
It's
gonna be crazy.
Honestly, AD if he wasn't hurt, AD would have been in there if he didn't get hurt. He was putting up ridiculous stat lines.
What's going to be really fun is not as much MVP for me, but the All NBA teams, how they end up working out, are going to be nuts this year. Nuts. It's the guards. Have you guys think about the guards that are going to be there? You got Mitchell, Ja, Shea, Curry, at the very least. Doncic, if he's considered a guard. Dame. That's 6 right there. We haven't even. There's so many names we're leaving out. Fox, Halliburton. Brunson,
Jaylen Brown.
All Brown. Yeah. Well, Brown. See, Jaylen Brown is not a guard. I feel like every time we've had this conversation like 3 times in the last month on this show where someone said Jaylen Brown's a guard and I get confused because he is. Like, I guess technically
he technically plays the most shooting guard. Like, he starts every game of Celtic technically as the shooting guard,
right?
But it is tough because Tim and Tatum are like, when you look at them, they're both just like hybrid wings. Tatum more of like a forward, I guess.
Well, and I just think of them. I know that he starts at the 2, but by the end of the game, it's usually Smart and a guard, Tatum, Brown, big. Yeah. And so then it's like, well, then he's not a 2 if it's Derek White and Marcus Smart. So with
Brogdon now it makes it tough too because they're always late game. They're always playing one of White or Brogdon.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But I get what you mean.
Yeah, I mean that's just the All NBA, the MVP, even the All-Star voting, man. It's like there's so much talent and good play going on right now.
Is Kevon Looney still in the top 10 for front court in the Western Conference, or did he fall out?
Yeah, we might have to do a whole topic next week on the fan voting because I don't know how down I am with that. I saw Austin Reeves name on that list way too high a couple weeks ago.
You shouldn't even
I'm
see
just
it.
like, yeah, that's what I mean.
Why is it there?
Lakers fans are out of their damn mind, bro.
Oh my gosh.
They're spiraling because they're barely in the play-in right now, and they're trying to force vote Austin Reeves into the All-Star game.
I do love Austin Reeves, though.
Yeah, you can't hate Austin Reeves. Last bit of news. Honestly, I put this in the news just because this was one of like the funniest basketball reports I've ever seen. But Pistons rookie Jalen Duran could miss the Pistons game in France against the Bulls tomorrow night, Thursday night, because he lost his passport and wasn't able to travel with the team. And this is the epitome of a rookie mistake. And it's just not happening anywhere near the court, but affecting his availability.
When did he figure out he lost it? Do we know? Like did he get to the airport and was like
from the Athletic? I don't. Yeah, I don't. Like he must. It must have been one of those situations because it sounds like he just missed out on the flight.
You want to know what's funny is until like I saw this doc, when I first saw this report, I just thought it meant like for a game against the Raptors. I was like, oh, whatever. Like he's got to miss the Raptors game. It's like, no, no. Not
like big deal game planned in France against Chicago. But that's a rookie mistake. The way the Pistons season's been going. And maybe this is just his mega attempt for Wemby. He's just doing everything he can for them to get Wembanyama. He's even losing his passport to miss games. But shout out Jalen Duran because other than this, he's been having a hell
rebound machine. Yeah. Rebound machine lately.
I think he's the youngest player in the NBA too. It's just absolutely.
Do you guys want a fun fact? Because that game Chicago-Detroit, as we can go on to the next thing here. It was happening last night at the Blackhawks game, but I have heard it at Bulls games too. Just random times people chant. People chant during sports games all the time, and there's a lot of "Let's go Bulls," "Let's go Hawks" here in Chicago. And when those chants break out, doesn't matter who they're playing. Like last night, Buffalo Sabres. I've seen the Bulls play the Pelicans, and this happen. You also hear Detroit sucks the whole time. You hear like half "Let's go Hawks" or half "Let's go Bulls," and then it's half Detroit sucks. So it's just hilarious every time I hear it. Like there was one guy sitting next to me last night that was just screaming. He's like, "Detroit sucks." Everybody starts laughing. Like, yeah, it's like, oh my god, not even here.
Why? It's like they're not bothering anyone. They've been at the bottom of the standings in pretty much every sport. What's Detroit doing, man?
Not much.
Midwestern charm. That's what it is.
Losing passports, I guess.
You got the Pistons. They haven't been great for a while. The Tigers in baseball haven't been great for a while. We know what the Lions are. I know they've been a little better.
The Bears too. The Lions and Bears rivalry is like the most hilarious thing to me because like it's the saddest rivalry in the world. Like they just both are like you see them both like put their jerseys on and they just look like they're going to the worst shift ever at work. You're just like, this is miserable. I remember seeing there was a guy I vividly remember. It was before the Bears Commanders game, which remember how much hype there was for that Thursday night affair going into this season. And I saw some guy walking around before the game, and he just looked like he was like seriously like the most miserable person I've ever seen walking out in public because it just looked like he was like, fuck, I gotta go watch the fucking Bears on a Thursday night. And that game was horrible. And it was horrible. Anyways, quick aside.
Yeah, but don't need to pick up Detroit. They've been bad for long enough. Let them have their thing.
Yeah, well,
but it will be interesting though. You brought it up briefly, Donnie. Though tanking for Wemby because Detroit's right there. That has a promising future.
If that's the case.
Who's gonna make the first move? Who's making the first big play? I feel like it's Toronto. I feel like or Charlotte. Charlotte could really jump off.
I think
everybody.
Charlotte could sell everything.
Yeah,
especially if they're not committed long term. Charlotte could just say, "We got to start from scratch." We're just
San Antonio getting rid of Pirtle first could be the first, big domino. Them try to get down there.
What about Houston? Because I was thinking about this. I like Houston's young core. I like Sengun. I like Jabari Smith. I like Jalen Green. Could they trade KPJ maybe? I like KPJ, but maybe he could go something like that. I think they keep Tari Eason. I don't think they package him. Obviously, he's a rookie this year, but I could see that. And then Wemby with that team, nasty front court.
Yeah, Wemby, Sengun, and those guards would be
Jabari.
disgusting. Yeah, and Jabari. Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, that'd
Jabari.
be really nasty. And then I mean they're 10-34 right now. They're right in the middle of it for tanking for Wemby. I don't know what pieces they would trade off, but I could very well see Houston try to make.
They don't need to trade anything. They're ready to roll.
They might not even need to make any moves.
Just stop playing defense. Do what Houston did last year, right? Just play like a 140 to 125 every single night. Get your stars their stats, but give up 140 and find your way into the first pick.
So I think that along with our power rankings, we should also do Wembanyama power rankings after starting next week.
Yes.
So we'll have both the power rankings come out. And if I had to do it, I think Houston just on their own has got to be the favorite. They're just the worst. Have you guys watched any Houston this year? Like a lot of it. I've watched a couple Houston games. Man, that is like barely a basketball team in general. So Charlotte, I think, is going to sell off quick, though. I think Toronto is going to sell and try to go hard for Wemby. The interesting team to me is like, what does OKC do? Because they could kind of make the playoffs. They don't really have a lot to like trade off, but they also have like, I don't even know what they could do, but I feel like they're going to try to trade all their first round picks to get one of those two guys.
Yeah, I could see that trading off picks and stuff. I don't really think they trade too many like assets this year.
No, they can't. They have no players. Like that's the thing is they're too good, and there's no like old players to trade.
Yeah, they got SGA, Giddey, and a bunch of young guys that are all decent enough to have roles, but not good enough to really be trade bait. And we kind of forget too, and I'm not gonna call him Wemby, but they got kind of a Wemby light in Chet Holmgren, who should come back next year. Like OKC has, their version of Wemby, and I know, man. Yeah, I don't have too many concerns about OKC. I think they just do what they do. If they can sneak into a play-in playoff game, then so be it. I think that's a great situation. I think that would kind of help SGA stay. But if you want to, keep this team together, you got to stay competitive. Otherwise, I think SGA would probably look elsewhere. And I think that's what OKC does. They just kind of stay put with the team they have. They keep trying to win games. SGA's been playing great. Giddey has been playing fantastic lately.
I'm not thinking about SGA leaving. I'm thinking about they could be like a title contender in 2 years, 3 years.
Oh, absolutely.
If their young guys keep accelerating, like Giddey especially. If Giddey keeps accelerating like he has been, like if it's just upward trajectory from now on, he could be a great 2 or 3 to SGA.
And even their role guys. Williams has been playing good.
I love Dort.
Been playing well.
Williams is awesome. Williams is like, how did he slip to this team? Like, how did he get to them? Because they just, OKC, if we're talking about Houston being like the worst league pass team to watch, the team I go out of my, like the team I probably watched the most besides the Cavs this year is OKC, which is absolutely insane. Never would have expected that before the year. I just find myself clicking over.
I'm going to veto you saying Houston's the worst league pass to watch. It's San Antonio, dude. It's San Antonio. I can't. I've never turned
on a San Antonio.
Yeah, exactly. So there we go. It's San Antonio because you don't even bother trying to turn them on.
I've literally never thought to myself, oh, San Antonio is playing so-and-so. Let me turn that on. I'm just like, no.
Dude, I don't even take props in their games anymore because in my mind I'm like either I'm gonna whiff and somehow San Antonio's gonna play well, or they'll be down 45 at halftime and whoever I take is gonna be sitting the bench in the entire second half. So San Antonio is a strict I can't do it. I can't do their games this year, man. I can't do it. I mean, if you want to watch Devin Vassell or Keldon Johnson just kind of play street ball, take 30 shots.
Romeo Langford, bro.
That's a beast.
If you want to do that, tune in. But San Antonio, at least Houston has some exciting players to watch. San Antonio, what are you doing?
Houston, I tune in for the train wreck usually. Houston, I'm like, is Kevin Porter Jr. taking 27 shots tonight? Let me see.
But it's usually a high-scoring game, and the other teams usually Houston stays in the game too until the fourth quarter when they get blown out 35-15 in the fourth quarter because they have no one who knows how to close a game. But
they just got nothing.
It's exciting basketball. San Antonio, you can tune in and it'll be 62-30 at halftime. You're like, what am I doing? Why did I just
Dude,
waste an hour
what
of
am I
my
doing
life?
here?
Well, this has been thrilling talk about the worst of the NBA, but we're also planning on talking about the best of the NBA. So, Dunny,
Yes,
take
I
it away.
have. I was gonna say Steve said a few things that I was gonna segue with. He brought up exciting players. He brought up 140 points a game, and I think, and feel free to stop me at any time if it's quite literally the answer to this is just we have bad defense in the NBA right now. But I'm pretty confident in declaring right now as the best basketball product in NBA history because just what we are seeing on a night-to-night basis. Damian Lillard had 50 last week in a loss and 48 last night in a loss, and no one knows about it. No one's really hearing about it. It's because in between the 50 and 48 bomb, you had a 43-point game from Nikola Vucevic last week, a 42-point game from Julius Randle last week. Jason Tatum this past week at 24 years old just passed Larry Bird for 50-point games in Celtics history. Drew Holiday, who's not even a scorer, his last two games, 35 and 37. Kyle Kuzma had a 40-point bomb last Friday night. Like this just happens on a night-to-night basis. A year or two ago, it was a story for a couple weeks when a guy had 50. Now everyone's waiting for the next game for them to do it again. And I didn't even bring up guys like LeBron, who we already talked about, Luka, who does this on literally a nightly basis. I think he's averaging like 47 over his last 10 games or something like that.
Insane.
I just can't help but think, wow, like Jalen Brunson, another guy, I think he has the most points since the new year started. Kevin Durant before the injury. Like this is just what we have learned to expect, and this is the everyday product in the NBA. And frankly, it's awesome to watch.
I completely agree with you. I think it's the most exciting version of the NBA I've seen in my lifetime. And I think the lazy arguments say, oh, they don't play defense anymore. They don't play defense. But you have heard NBA players talk about that. No, it's just the talent level is at such an all-time high now. Guys are just getting what they want. You can read a box score and be like, oh, yeah, high-scoring game. It was like a 250 combined total. No one played defense. But then you go back and watch some of the highlights. These guys are making contested shots, tough looks. I mean, it's not just like, oh, they're just walking to the rim every time. The talent level of the NBA players right now is ridiculous. And to your point, Dunny, where you said it's the best product in NBA history, I can't really argue against that because I have firsthand experience where I have a bunch of friends that we have this group chat. We have this like gambling group chat, and they were never NBA guys. They were strictly NFL and like college football, college basketball. That was kind of the sports that they would watch during the season. And I had told them at the start of this year, I'm like, take a few NBA props, just a couple to watch the games. And right now, I get daily texts about these guys saying that the NBA is the greatest sport of all time, that they are just obsessed with it, where they're asking me updates like, dude, did you just see what happened in Pacers Hornets? I go, no, I didn't. I'm sorry. Like, I must have missed it. And they're losing their minds right now because it's been such exciting basketball. And I know you're going to have some of the old heads be like, oh, they don't play defense. But I'm going to argue that I think they're playing very good defense right now. It's just the talent level, and not just the talent in terms of the top end talent. We're looking at these teams where 1 through 30, the best team to the worst team, everyone has at least a couple guys that any given night can go off for 35, 40 plus points. And not only that, we've seen more depth than ever before, partly because of all these international players that are coming over that are dominant. You have that on top of just the talent pool overall. You have the G League, you have college basketball, you have international, all these different, I guess, avenues for them to come from. And we're seeing such incredible basketball. And I actually saw something pretty cool. I think it was, I can't remember if it was on TikTok or Twitter or YouTube, whatever it was. But a guy was talking about if people are really upset for the high scoring, the amount of these outbursts, expand the league. Get a couple expansion teams in there because then you spread the talent out a little bit. But we're just at the point now where we're kind of past the big three era, and we're just at the stacked teams era because there are teams that can have probably 1 through 7, 1 through 8, top 7, 8 guys on their roster any given night could go for 30 plus. And that is
it's
never
insane.
been the case before. It's wild to see and you talked about Drew Holiday, 35 and 37. Why did that happen? Oh, Giannis was out for the game. Drew had to step up, and he did. It's just happening on a nightly basis. Not just the superstars, but guys who need to, jump in for a role. We saw when Halliburton was injured. Andrew Nembhard came in and had a 30-point game as a rookie. I mean, it's just happening every single night. And I think we just have
Malcolm Brogdon at 30 off the bench the other night.
TJ McConnell, 29. Yeah. I mean, it's wild right now, but I think we just have to appreciate it because I think you're right, Dunny. I think in terms of product, this is the best product that we have seen. And I will argue against everyone saying, oh, they don't play defense anymore, because it's like, yeah, you can see that if you look at the scores and the points they're putting up. But if you watch the games, it's not like they're letting them just walk to the hoop every time. These guys are just so talented. They can get what they want despite the double coverage or however the defense schemes against them. And it's been a joy to watch because that's excitement. We don't want to see an 80 to 83 game. Nobody wants to see that. Yeah. I would much rather prefer a 120, like 118 game. As long as it's intense basketball, I'm all for it.
Yeah, so I agree with everything you guys said. I think that there are multiple things that can be true when it comes to this. I think, first of all, talent level is literally the highest it's ever been. Yeah. I mean, it's clear night and day, I think, from what we've seen even 10 years ago from some of the guys in the league, especially big guys. Like, think of like the stretch 4 was like something I did with LeBron in like 2K11. It's just like a cheat code move. And now it's like everybody's like, you have to have a lineup and a guy that can play that position in today's league. It's just like the way that I think that the style of the league has also benefited. I like we talked about last week, I think, Steve, when you weren't on the show, there was a stat that I think it was Zach Lowe or Kevin O'Connor put out, one of the two, about how like there's more people averaging 20 points per game, that like double the amount of people than last year, even, and something like that. I think that's both
crazy,
the style of play that the NBA has leaned into the last couple years, and also the talent level. I also think the regular season game, like for me, is just a complete different game from a playoff game, and that you see a lot of these guys be able to put these numbers up, but if you put them in a 7-game series, it just literally anybody in the league, even Jokic, is not going to be putting up like Luka's not going to be putting up 60, 20, and 10 in a playoff game. Jokic isn't going to do 50. Yes, unless it's against the Suns. One caveat in Game 7 too. It has to be Game 7. But that's just like it's like the game is like growing in multiple different ways. And we're seeing it manifest as it's happening. Cause like, I feel like it's just evolving every year. There's a new style, new thing, new change that like evolves it further. When we're talking about, think of how different, like what the Warriors were doing, pre-KD Warriors, what they were doing. That was like revolutionizing the league and everything. And now like most teams shoot more threes than the Warriors did in like 2015, 2016. Like, I think, I listened to a podcast a couple of months ago that said those Warriors would have been like 24th in like threes attempted this year. At that point in the season, could have changed at this point, but just think of how crazy it is. That's only 7 years ago, 8 years ago. That was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And now it's literally just the norm. I think everybody's still just adjusting to it at different times, but it's the main point is, I agree completely. It's the best. This is the most exciting the product's ever been. The most visible the product's ever been. We have the most stars, the most talent. And like you said, expansion teams, I think 2, probably Vegas, Seattle, coming down the pipeline soon. It's definitely necessary. And I think it's not going to dilute the league at all. It's going to allow more people to show what they have and give more opportunities, because there's clearly guys that are out there right now, not on an NBA roster, that could be putting up 20 points in the league, I think.
Not even that. There's clearly guys off the bench that could be a guy on the team who could average 20 on their team if they were a starter getting 30 plus minutes. That's what's so wild about it. We see, because right now there's a lot of guys that will rest, or with injury management, they will be very cautious with it. And we see when they're out for one day, it's next man up mentality. The guy just steps up and just plays in that role almost perfectly. It's wild to see.
Yeah, and everyone from like the whole non-defense in this era of basketball or this product, it's like no one's declaring that this is the best defensive era of basketball.
Right.
This is just the best product we have. And yeah, maybe the defense is down, but it's because like we're just everything we're talking about. Everyone on every team is so goddamn talented, and it is very hard to stay in front of these super skilled players. And that's just the matter of the fact. And what Jake brought up too, it's like that you won't see that in 7-game series in the playoffs, and it's for a number of reasons because teams get familiar over a 7-game series. They learn how to shut their certain things down. The better player plays the whole game. Like the stars, they stay in, they get tired out. They don't, it's just more of a grind. The other team, and it's just more important basketball. There's more on the line. Defense starts to matter a little bit more. Yeah. But yeah,
that's what I think. I think the pace, like, just it just grinds. It just turns like it's not going to be as open because teams don't want to take those chances to be that open.
Yeah, so that's me declaring that this is the best basketball product I've definitely ever seen. I think a lot of people would be in agreement with that, but yeah, like you guys said, there'll always be those people who want their 65 to 72 games, but I think those are behind us at least for a while, or unless we see a rule change in the NBA or something like that.
That is me as a football fan, though.
Yeah,
I would love a 10-3 game. Give me a 10-3 game with 10 punts every day of the week, bro. Sign me up.
I think it depends who's playing in the football game for me to agree with that. But
Alabama A&M versus I don't even know.
But speaking of guys who have done it in today's era, Steph Curry, and then we know him as the GOAT for most. But obviously on the hot seat, like Steve talked about at the beginning of the episode, Michael Jordan, Steve Kerr calls Steph Curry the modern day Michael Jordan. We don't have to stay too long on this, but I just want to know your guys' thoughts on this.
Yeah, go ahead, Jake.
I get where Steve is coming from, but he's just hyping up his guy. Like, I get it. The main point is that, when they used to be going around the country and everything, everybody was wearing Jordan jerseys, and now they see the same impact with Curry. There's always Curry jerseys in every arena. Obviously, you see that people staying for the warm-ups and all those sorts of things. And that was that kind of the comparison of the global impact. And from that perspective, yeah, he's clearly one of the most popular players in the league. That's bar none, whatever. But I think that's like where the comparison stops. Like, Curry has never been Curry is at his peak, never was, I don't think, the undisputed top guy at the top of the mountain. It was always a tiered list. I think that people that think LeBron was directly ahead of him too, even as a LeBron fan here, are crazy. I think it was those two for a long time. I think it would be, and Durant even in those years too. I think it would be remiss to try to put any of them against when MJ was so clearly head and shoulders above. And also part of Kerr's argument was like Curry 6'3", 185, and no one can do what he can at his size. And it's like, that has nothing to do with MJ. Like, MJ was like 6'6". He was like a pretty good sized basketball player, like normal. I don't like the comparison for me beyond the jerseys and the impact. I just don't see it. I don't think that anybody has been as singularly, I mean, I guess like Wilt, Russell, like those kind of guys. And then MJ as the singularly dominant of that generation. I'm not going to rehash all the Curry, KD, all that good stuff. So I don't think it's there. But the jerseys are cool to see, and the warm up stuff has always been cool to see.
Yeah, I kind of get that with Curry with the global reach of everyone wants to be Steph, right? All the little kids, they want to shoot like Steph, and he did change the game to a degree.
I will say, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I don't know about you guys, but I did start shooting deeper threes in pickup games, and that only happened with Steph Curry. So.
Everybody did, and I think that kind of changed the game because not only did the kids and us, just idiots, do that in pickup games, NBA teams were like, oh, okay, like, well, let's just shoot like 35, 40 threes tonight and see what happens. Like, if you get a hot shooter and just kind of falls into a flow, it's going to change it. And I think that is where you can kind of make a comparison a little bit, because Jordan definitely impacted the game in a big way, kind of changed it and in a certain direction, but Curry changed it with the kind of 3-pointers being more important, stuff like that. The biggest thing why I can't really get behind it as Curry's the modern day MJ is when MJ was playing at his time, despite a lot of other great players still playing at the time, he's number one. It's number one's MJ. But it's always been a debate. Like you said, Jake, it's always been a debate. And if we want to revisit the Warriors teams, if you want to go with the champions aspect, how MJ has the 6 titles, Curry's got 4, and Curry's been incredible in those playoffs, you can make the argument for the years with KD, Curry was 1B on that team. That KD was the guy and Curry was the 1B. You can't make that argument in any of the 6 championships that Jordan had. He was the 1 and Scottie was the 2. It was clear as day. So that's where I kind of don't see it. But it's also, Steve Kerr just, defending his guy, or not even defending, but just hyping up his guy. And I'm not going to argue it because you guys know I love Curry, but I think that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I'm kind of like right in between both of you guys. The only reason I could like kind of feel like this maybe had some more truth to it, and Steve Kerr actually believes this, other than him just hyping up his best player and his sort of prized possession as a coach, is that Steve Kerr probably would be one of the, if not the best guy that could make a judgment call on this. Like, he spent so much time around MJ as his teammate, and then coached, Curry nearly his whole career. So if there is a guy who make a statement like this, I guess it makes sense that it's Steve Kerr.
Here's the thing, though. Couldn't someone just say this about LeBron, and you could say literally all the same things? Like every game. Yeah, in every game I've ever been to, like you've seen how many times do you see on TV Lakers LeBron jerseys? They're showing them everywhere. It's the same thing. It was the same way with Cavs jerseys too. When he was on the Cavs, same thing with Heat jerseys. Heat jerseys were literally invading every arena. Yeah. So it's like, I get it, but like, he's not the only guy that's done it this era, and that's what separates him. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's a very valid point.
Yeah, it is valid, and all I was gonna say on it was just that I just see the kind of gravitational pull towards guys like Steph and MJ. Like, I get that comparison, the whole jersey thing you guys talked about it. Steph's shooting, how it kind of changed an era of basketball. MJ's athleticism and just aura kind of changed his generation of basketball. Yeah. So it's just is different scales, though. It's kind of like one of those things that you probably should just leave alone because he's not close enough. Like it was more of an argument. Like if you just, when everyone said this about Kobe and MJ, like that just made much more sense. They're more similar players. Kobe kind of had the killer instinct where, and this isn't a knock on Steph, but they're two different people, right? Like MJ was like, came in shades, like stone faced, like didn't really have too much personality. You kind of had to get it out of him, where Steph's kind of, shooting from anywhere in the arena, running around, smiling before games, which is awesome. Like both personalities are great, but they even like differ in those ways. So definitely some comparisons to pull, but yeah, I think this was a bit of a stretch.
Yeah,
I guess it is best that Kerr didn't call himself Phil Jackson, and we can be happy that that's
Speaking of, we talked about simulation things earlier with Mac McClung and Macklemore both being similar looking people in their name. Why Steve Kerr and Steph Curry is very weird and always
that messes me up sometimes.
It is super weird that they ended up like together in any fashion. It's just like another simulation weird thing. It's like, how? It's literally the same name. You add an E at the end of Steve.
Like, yeah, that feels like one of those like Lincoln and Kennedy things we got going on. But it's just Kerr and Curry, Steve and Stephen. But yeah, with that said, you guys want to do a little power rankings? Happy Hour Hoops power rankings.
Bam.
So there we have it. If you're watching, it's up on the screen for you. If you are listening, we have the Boston Celtics at 1. That's a good shove in the face to
I think
NBA.
The whole year.
Yeah. I think maybe there was like a week in November we didn't, but Celtics stay at the top for now. I'll explain my reasoning. If you guys disagreed with me putting them there, I would love to hear. I know we kind of talked about it a little. Nuggets 2 spot deserving. NBA.com had them at number 1. Grizzlies, who are on an absolute surge lately, are the 3 seed. The Milwaukee Bucks are 4 in the power ranking. They just, they're going to keep doing their thing. Guys coming out of the lineup doesn't really matter. And the Sacramento Kings, 4-game win streak. Sabonis, his teammate De'Aaron Fox thinks he should be in the MVP conversation as well. I'm not there yet, but Fox and Sabonis are having incredible seasons. And then honorable mentions, Brooklyn, who hasn't won, unfortunately, since KD went down. And then Cleveland, maybe even the Sixers in there. We talked about them last week, how we didn't want to have them in the power rankings just because it's really tough to
If you thought I was putting them in that graphic over the Cleveland Cavaliers, you are sadly mistaken, my friend. There was no way. I was thinking about taking Cleveland. I was like, nah.
I wasn't going to ask you to do that.
Not yet. But it is a little wary. Cleveland, Mitchell has a groin injury, out for at least 2 weeks. And I am a person who has personally dealt with groin injuries. And I honestly said earlier in a group chat, sit him until the All-Star break. So that's where I'm at with the Cavs. I would rather just keep Mitchell healthy because that thing can linger. If he comes back in 2 weeks, he could tweak it in 2 games and then he's out for a month and then it's hanging around in the playoffs. And then that's when we need him. So sit him out till after All-Star. Let him play in the All-Star game. Sit him out until All-Star. He can play in the All-Star game if he wants to and then come back, whatever. Or he comes back like the week before. But I wouldn't sit him. I'd sit him 3 weeks. I'd sit him into February. I think the Cavs are going to drop.
Especially if it's even close to a diagnosis where it's it could be a couple weeks. If he even is leaning towards I might want that extra time, you just give it to him.
Yeah. He was a game time decision, but was marked doubtful very early this morning, and I'm sure so. Definitely not playing tonight.
Yeah.
They play again Friday, so I guess we'll see then. But
speaking of groin injuries as well, Jaylen Brown is supposed to be set to return against the Warriors tomorrow night with his groin
Celtics
injury.
have been pretty good without Jaylen Brown. They've been picking up the slack.
This is what I was going to say. I just don't understand how the NBA had the Celtics fall out of the number 1 spot in the power rankings this week of all weeks, right? Because I have a few things I want to read for you guys, and then just some other things. Excuse me. So the Celtics this season, best record in the NBA, 1st in net rating, 1st in offensive rating, 2nd in points per game, 5th in assists per game, 4th in blocks per game, 2nd in most 3-pointers made, 1st in point differential, 2nd in total points scored. They've won their last 7. 3 of those have came without Jaylen Brown. And during that 7-game span, Tatum has had a 51-point game, all while holding the best record in the NBA by still
a game and a half, 2 games.
Game and a half on the Nuggets. Explain to me how they fall out.
There is no. They shouldn't fall out until they are dragged out of there
until they're passed, right? If the Nuggets had a better record, I get that.
It could be too, because the Nuggets, when they played the Celtics, Jokic kind of just dominated them, and I could see that. That's the only, I guess, reason I could see is when they played each other, the Nuggets kind of not embarrassed them, but it was a convincing win. But I think to your point, Dunny, I mean, the Celtics have shown, one of the big things for a team that should stay at the number 1 spot, and that's depth. Jaylen Brown is out, and other guys step up. Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon. Derek White got hurt in a game, too, and they still won that game. That's losing 2 guards right there. The Celtics have looked great. Tatum has put his name into the MVP conversation. He's been in that conversation all year long, but I'm saying he put his name into it this year by taking another step. And when they get Jaylen Brown back, it's not like it's going to hurt them. Even if they lose a game when they get Jaylen Brown, you would still much rather have Jaylen Brown than not have Jaylen Brown. And that's just a team, too, that was still kind of getting gelled with Rob Williams coming back and figuring out how they want to play in the late game situations and stuff like that. Until they get dethroned, you can't take them out of the 1 spot. And I don't think it's Celtics bias with you having them at the 1 spot. I think the Celtics Also, they went to the championship last year. Like what are we doing here? Like they've proven for over basically a calendar year at this point that they've been one of, if not the best team in the NBA over the last calendar year. So until something drastic happens, or until they go on, a big losing streak, they are going to stay at the one spot, and we can forgive them for, bad spots. Like when they lost to the Nuggets, didn't look great against Jokic, or when, I don't know what happened in the game against OKC when they gave up 150. You can forgive them for that because overall, they've been a super consistent and a super dominant team. And you just read the stats, Dunny. There's no other NBA team that is in the top 5 in all those categories like the Celtics. So the numbers back them up. When you watch them, that backs them up. And then you look at the roster, it backs it up too. It's hard to make the argument that they don't deserve the one spot. But you know how these sites get. They get trendy and they're like, oh, what's the hot team right now? Let's move them up. Let's move the teams that, are down a little bit that have been there because we want to be new and trendy. This is all boring. But the Celtics are the best team in the NBA, and that's that. That's that right now. And if it changes, we'll let you know. But it hasn't changed yet.
Right. Yeah, that's where I was at.
That's what
I will say.
Go ahead.
Real quick, just for the honorable mention of the Nets. The Nets shouldn't even be an honorable mention when KD's not on the court. That's all I'll say. It's just a completely different.
I mean, Owen, I think we had higher hopes, and we maybe gave him a little too much.
I just didn't want to drop him. I didn't want to drop him all the way out after they were in last week.
Without KD, they're not a top 17.
Couldn't do it.
It's tough because they have been doing so well. But yeah, the 0-3 without Kevin Durant, like you thought they would have been. And it's last night sucked too. Kyrie ended up getting hurt, like you said, Steve, right?
Yeah, now they're out next week for sure. Philly is in that spot, or New Orleans if they can get healthy too.
Better. They gotta get healthy.
If New Orleans doesn't get healthy, it's Philly, buddy. They're sneaking it, but the Cavs hurt too. So like, what are we gonna do here? We're gonna have to put Philly in. That's why the more interesting conversation to me with this, the Celtics are the best team in the league to me. They will be probably the Bucks are still, I think, honestly 2 in my mind. I don't think, but that power rankings, we can change them because that's not what power rankings are. But that's just like when I think of like who I'm going to trust in the playoffs, which is at the end of it, it's going to be those 2 teams, 1 and 2. The Bucks are just kind of they're showing their age. They need, and I don't know what they do about that. But that's their biggest issue. The conversation for me that I want to hear from you guys is when we're really talking about Denver and Memphis, who feel like they are separating themselves in the West, and maybe New Orleans will be a part of that conversation, but these are the 2 teams with the pedigree, at least. New Orleans is kind of new to this. Memphis is still new too, but they had a better year than New Orleans last year, so I'll allow them into this conversation. Who do you trust more out of New Orleans and Denver, like, to really take hold of the 1 seed there?
So are you saying between New Orleans, Denver?
Oh, no. I said New Orleans, my bad. No. Just Denver and Memphis. My bad.
It's crazy. And I think literally like a week and a half ago, I would not have said this, and definitely not at the beginning of the season. It's the Nuggets right now, man. It's the Nuggets, I think, are arguably the deepest team in the league. I think every game I watch of the Nuggets, I'm like, oh, wow, they do have another guy that can, give them 20, whether it's off the bench or is in the starting lineup that game. Aaron Gordon has just unlocked himself playing alongside Jokic. I feel like we haven't even seen all of Jamal Murray yet, and they're still on this surge. And then, I mean, if Jokic is going to shoot 93% in a game, forget about it. Like, it's what can you do if one of the best players in the league is shooting 93%, misses 1 shot in a game? I think Memphis has a few more flaws, and they're just not as deep. But yeah, right now it's hard. It's so tough because we're talking about trusting in the playoffs, right? And this is the one thing we've been waiting for this Nuggets core to prove to us. So that part is tough. Memphis kind of seems like their defensive mindset and their defensive identity. You kind of want to buy into a team like that more in the playoffs, but right now it'd be too difficult for me not to say the Nuggets.
I'm going to go with the Nuggets, and even though I was very big on Memphis at the start of the year, I think they were my pick to come out of the West. I can't remember, or at least see if the Western Finals. I had them winning the Southwest. I love this Memphis Grizzlies team, and now we're seeing what they're doing when they have Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. on the court at the same time. I think they've scored over 120 points in the last 7 games. They have the second best point differential in the NBA over the entire year to the Boston Celtics. But if we take a look a little bit in this 10-game winning streak, and by no means am I saying Memphis is fraudulent. I'm just look at their wins over the Suns at home. You had the Pacers, the Spurs twice, the Jazz, the Magic, the Hornets, the Kings, who've been solid, the Pelicans, and the Raptors. So it hasn't been a gauntlet of a schedule. There's been a lot of easy wins in there, and I'm not taking anything away because they've been playing great, and they've been blowing these teams out. For the most part, their wins have been like by 20-plus the past 2 or 3 weeks. But when we look at it, Donnie, you talked about the depth of the Nuggets, and you brought up some names. But there's a couple unsung heroes on this Nuggets team, and that's Bruce Brown and that's Bones Highland, that have given them so much depth and so many other options, whether they're coming off the bench or they're playing with the starters. Bruce Brown, he's hitting those open shots. Bones Highland has been a great guard coming off the bench, or whenever, Jamal Murray needs to rest or he needs to be thrown into the starting lineup, or even not start, but just play significant minutes. He's able to do it. Aaron Gordon has proved, I think, all of us wrong. KCP's been great. Michael Porter Jr. is finally starting to get a little bit better as this year goes on. And we talked about him as having one of the highest ceilings on this team. Of if Michael Porter Jr. can reach his potential, you have a 6'10", guard, stretch forward, whatever you want to call him, that can hit the open shots, that can create his own shot. And you're pairing that right now with Nikola Jokic, who is without question the best player in the NBA probably the past month. He has been unbelievable. The efficiency he's been playing at is ridiculous. He's making everyone better. I've never seen a big man pass the ball like he has. Never in my life did I expect I'd see a big man be able to pass the ball like he has, setting up his teammates. And you're right. We haven't seen, the bubble version of Jamal Murray yet, right? The full version of Jamal Murray that we could possibly see. I mean, the Nuggets, they're the first place team in the West right now, and I don't even know if we've seen the best version of the Nuggets yet this season. Whereas with Memphis, I think Memphis is a great team, but I think they might need to get a couple more pieces because I love their starting lineup. I love their core, but it does drop off a lot quicker than the Nuggets.
No, they're going to be big buyers, I think, at the deadline.
I think so.
I think this team is not going to be close to what it looks like. And they are a team where if I'm thinking of like big time swings, if we're talking Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine type things, Memphis is going to be in on every single one of those conversations. And they should be.
If they're one of the teams on the radar for OG Anunoby, then people should be scared.
If the Grizzlies get OG Anunoby, I'm just gonna tell work to put my paychecks in Memphis Grizzlies futures. That's gonna happen if they get Anunoby, because that's the piece they're missing. That's the piece.
Durant, Anunoby, Jackson, and Adams or if you take Adams off and put anybody
play small.
You could play Williams. You could go, Clark, whatever they want to do it.
Aldama. You can play.
Aldama. Yeah.
And that might maybe they had a 6-block game the other night. By the way,
I feel like it's every night at this point where I look, and I know it's not because he's averaging high threes, but it's like every night I'm like, oh, Jackson had 5 blocks. Like,
he is really figuring out like the NBA game, like just when it clicks, it takes a little longer for the big men for it to click, and it just looks like for him something has clicked. He just is terrifying. Like
and we're not gonna take away. I'm almost backpedaling here with the depth because you got Brandon Clark and Dylan Brooks that have just been good role players for the Grizzlies their entire career.
I can't stand Dylan Brooks though. I will never like Dylan Brooks is not a guy that I will trust in a playoff scenario.
No, I get that, but you can't take away that he's averaging 16 and a half points.
Oh yeah, no, he's awesome.
You can't take that away. Like,
it's just too volatile.
And if they get a guy, then you can use Dylan Brooks, more off the bench, and that's
who I would rather see putting up those shots for them. Speaking of trade targets, is Jordan Clarkson. I think he would be a perfect addition for the Memphis Grizzlies.
That would be a nice addition.
And give those shots from Brooks to Clarkson because I
don't know if that works though. Him and Bane have gone at it so many times. Yeah. Bane publicly said
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Bane publicly said that he would beat Jordan Clarkson's ass. Pretty much.
Yeah, maybe not the best chemistry fit.
They'd have to figure that out, but
the scoring would be great, but they might throw hands.
First 2 games, there's just a brawl on the court. Oh, it happens to be Bane and new addition Jordan Clarkson.
Jaren Jackson Jr., by the way, is the latest #1 rank in the Defensive Player of the Year ladder right now, according to the NBA.com.
Can't argue with it.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, it feels like every night. Like I say, he's getting 5 blocks a night. When you do that,
how about this top 3? Jaren Jackson Jr., Brooke Lopez, and Nick Claxton. Crazy.
Can't argue with any of them, honestly.
No,
it is,
but
crazy.
It's just such a wild 3 names
also
in 2023 to have as the DPOY.
Also hilarious how they finally gave it to a guard last year, and they were like, "Yep, we're not doing that shit again.
Yeah,
back to the big boys.
Back to the big men. Whoever's protecting the rim, that's who we want."
Jaren Jackson Jr., you're 6'11". That's the shortest we're going, baby. That's it.
And I know we're not giving flowers right now, but shout out Nick Claxton. I did not expect to see this type of jump. He's been a huge part for the Brooklyn Nets and their success. We want to talk
knows
about
his role, man.
KD and Kyrie, exactly.
And it cleans up. It helps with Simmons on the court. Whatever you think of Simmons, Claxton has less to worry about with Simmons out there defensively. Like he doesn't have to do as much. I honestly think just as much moving because Simmons takes up so much more space in there. He's been awesome. Claxton he's been a treat, and Nets fans have loved him for years. So, can we get to an old DPOY here? Finish up with that.
Oh yeah.
Yep. It looks like we're gonna have to, guys. The another this or that on Happy Hour Hoops to end the show. This week on this or that, straight up, all things considered, what player are you taking right now? Walker Kessler or Rudy Gobert?
Stevie, you go. I mean, it's actually kind of funny because I actually was talking about this earlier today on one of my streams for work because I was just bringing it up and it was pretty convincing. I would say almost like 80-90% said Walker Kessler, and I can't argue it. Walker Kessler is the younger, healthier, and I think higher potential version of Rudy Gobert. And that's what he was at college at Auburn. That's what Walker Kessler was. That was his role. And he's bought into it with the Utah Jazz. And I think Walker Kessler he's going to have a great role in the NBA. He's never going to be an offensive monster that averages 20 a game, but you don't need him to do that. What you need Walker Kessler to do is get boards, protect the rim, and get a bunch of blocks, and that's what he's been doing. He's playing great defense. I really like Walker Kessler. He's one of, I think, the biggest surprises from this rookie class. This rookie class may not have been as, hyped as the past couple of years or guys putting up the type of numbers as the past couple of years, but there's a lot of surprises from it. And Walker Kessler has probably been the biggest surprise from the rookie class, where he just kind of stepped right into Utah. I didn't even think he played many minutes this year. And he's had a big role. He's been a great rim protector. And it's almost kind of like with Utah, it's just like, oh, yeah, that's just kind of Rudy Gobert now. It's just Walker Kessler was just playing the Rudy Gobert role. And then, we'll talk about the trade later. But if we're just going straight up, I'm still taking Walker Kessler. Younger, higher ceiling, better potential. Sign me up. And also, you're not paying him, $200 billion. So, give me Walker Kessler.
Yeah, over the last week, Walker Kessler's had a game where he's had 13 points and 7 blocks, a game where he's had 15 points and 12 rebounds, and then most recently, the 20-point, 21 rebound, 2-block game for Walker Kessler. And he's crazy efficient, too. He's shooting 71% on the season.
I think
Jake. Yeah, my stats I just gave were definitely an argument towards Kessler for me. What have you?
Fuck Rudy Gobert.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's the only other thing.
I loved Walker. I wanted Walker Kessler to get the Cavs ended up, doing whatever they were doing there, but I just loved Walker Kessler. I didn't want him to end up. I don't like that he's in Utah because I don't like the Jazz. I didn't like him in Minnesota. I wish he was on another team, but yeah, he was. I was very excited about him as a prospect coming out, and fuck Rudy Gobert. I can't do it.
Yeah, man. And Steve pretty much nailed everything for me on why I would take Walker. Like you take the younger player at this point. The fact that he's already proving he can post 2020 games. He's capable of blocking shots at least, maybe not the same effectiveness, but the same rate as Rudy Gobert. I mean, this kid already has a 7-block game under his belt this season. I don't think Rudy's had a 7-block game this season.
I think so.
He's not.
And another thing too with Walker Kessler, Donnie, is he's improving as the year goes on.
Yes.
He's been improving as the year goes on. That's the big thing for me, right? When you want to see like this, you want to see improvement. He was averaging 5 points and 5 rebounds a game through October and November. Then in December, 9.5 points, 8.7 rebounds, and I believe 2 blocks. Now in January, just the first half of January, 10 points, 10 rebounds, 2.5 blocks. He's averaging a double-double with 2.5 blocks in the 4th month of his rookie season.
Yep.
The potential's there. He's going to probably be a better player than Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably already a better perimeter defender. We know Rudy really struggles in that. And let's be honest, the last year and a half, Rudy's been on a steady decline. And the only other thing I'll say, and obviously, this is subject to change for Walker Kessler because it is so early in his career. But Rudy Gobert has had issues, and we don't know from the outside looking in who is at fault in all of these. But the thing that we can't deny is that he's had issues with multiple teammates on multiple teams. And that's, he's on a decline. He's on one of the worst contracts in NBA history. He's much older than Walker Kessler, and he can't guard the perimeter, and he's beefing with his teammates. We saw in Utah with Donovan Mitchell. There's obviously something going on between him and Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. I don't know who's at fault in that triangle or what's not working there. But something's not working in Minnesota. Charles Barkley the other day called this the worst trade in NBA history. And what I like to say to Sir Charles is we've been saying that since it happened. Happy Hour Hoops has been on that this is the worst trade in NBA history. Let's not forget what it was. Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Walker Kessler, 4 first-round picks, and a pick swap for Mr. Rudy Gobert. And, apparently a fair trade would have been just Walker Kessler for Rudy Gobert, because that's what we're saying now, and we're all in agreement that that's what
I wouldn't have even traded a first-round pick for Rudy Gobert. I wouldn't have given up Walker Kessler, the number 22 pick.
You wouldn't give up 4 picks on a swap, though?
So just to be clear, you wouldn't do 5 times that.
4 times I would think about. 5, too many.
With 2 or 1 dynamic guard and 1 solid defensive guard.
Oh my God.
Who's very proven.
We need to get Anthony Edwards out of
D'Lo,
Minnesota.
someone who is rumored to be out of Minnesota. It's already not working for Minnesota, this super team they tried to build.
They're going to have to trade Edwards just to get picks back because of how bad their Gobert trade was to try to pair with Edwards.
Not working is putting it very nicely, too, Dunny. This is an absolute disaster for Minnesota. It is bad.
It's so bad, man. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of wish that this or that was a little harder, but it is nice that – it's very lopsided, but it's also like a surprising, eye-opening this or that where, wow, this is one asset, one of the smaller assets in the trade that you sent away to get this guy, and now you're probably wishing you hadn't done it at all and you just stuck with Walker Kessler.
Yep, and also to remember that the T-Wolves are going to be very bad for a while after this because the clock's ticking on Ant now. Gobert is only going to get worse. It's only going downhill for him.
Same with Russell. Only going downhill for Russell. I don't
Russell's been bad this year. Russell is honestly a chore to watch right now. It's tough. Timberwolves, bad league pass team. Really bad league pass team. I thought they'd be a fun league. They were a fun last year. Great league pass team. This year, horrible league pass team.
Yeah,
horrible.
agreed.
I don't know. No. not trying to watch Minnesota. Yet they beat the Cavs the other night because Anthony Edwards balled out and had like 39 points or whatever he ended up with.
Insane,
He's the only
man.
hope. Save Ant. Get him out.
All right, well, is that it, fellas? We did the this
That's
or
it.
that and completely embarrassed Rudy Gobert. So
Get
I
him
think
out of here.
that's all in a day's
Yeah.
work at Happy Hour Hoops.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, y'all. Follow us at Happy Hour Hoops 1 on all social. Follow Trainwreck Sports, Steve, Jake. This is Dunny. We'll be back next week for more talk on the best NBA product we have seen.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.